fathers. We're going to go into our tea time session. So we'll start with our first story, and they're going to put that up on the screen for you. Now, we open this up for discussion. It's usually something riveting. The title is already, Man Wonders If He Is Wrong for Refusing to Adopt a Child His Wife Conceived During an Affair. So we have a 26-year-old wife and a 27-year-old husband. The wife had a one-night stand. She was drunk and ended up getting pregnant. So they went through couples therapy, and at first they were going back and forth about maybe getting a divorce, but then decided through counseling that they were going to stay together. So the husband said he was okay to take a step-parent role, but wasn't willing to fully be the child's dad. They had a little boy. So he would not adopt, but would raise the child and send him off to college. He wanted to be that quote, unquote, fun uncle. Okay, that's what he said. So the wife agreed. She became a stay-at-home mom, and now the child is 5, and she's had a change of heart, and he has not, obviously. So he's like, this is what I agreed to. He's already even said that he has an issue, of course, with what happened, with the details of it, and he's trying not to take that out on the child. So he's still going to therapy just to deal with the idea that the child is here. So this is the question, whether or not he's right or wrong, or if he's wrong to think that he should not have to adopt the child. So we're going to start off with the ladies, and we'll start with Sheri.
I think he should have extracted himself from the situation from the get-go, as opposed to getting involved now 5 years into it, because then that's just confusing. Because if he's going to have the same feeling and not change it, then it should not have gone that far. And I think it's bad for everyone involved. They should not have come to that agreement in the first place, especially since the wife had a change of heart. He was already not vested in it, so he should not have continued with it, in my opinion. He should have gotten out of it if he's going to feel that way. It's not good for himself or the child, and he's still going through therapy for it. No.
Completely agree with Sheri. I have a blended family myself. I had one child. My husband had one child, and then we have one together now. And we've been married for 34 years. And children are nothing to play with. If he wasn't all in the beginning, this whole uncle thing, calling him uncle, him wanting just to play video games with the kid, no. I think it was a selfish act on both of their parts. And Sheri is 100% correct, in my opinion, that he should have extracted himself from that situation immediately.
Yeah. Thirdly, I'm just a firm believer in like that time span is like you can't take it back from 0 to 6. So it's really not fair to the child. It's not fair to the husband. I'm not really sure what it states about the actual father. Maybe I missed that. But that totally like is not his responsibility to do that, and he can't take back that time. So that really is an unfortunate situation, especially for the kid. I feel like the kids, he's accepted this imagery, so it's definitely going to be hard for him to adapt moving forward. So
when I hear stories like this, my heart breaks. My heart breaks for many reasons, but the biggest reason is I grew up in foster care. I see this from the perspective of the child that will, through no fault of their own, have to live with the types of connections or anxiety and or feelings of not being wanted that can come from a situation like this. I believe that the not adopted dad should, he was never going to want to change his opinion on this, but sometimes women, we agree to something just because we think if we can keep him, we'll keep him close, that maybe he'll change his mind. And that usually fails to actually work out in the long run. I think that at this point, if they're not going to move together forward as a family, then this is where you call it quits and you say, okay, well then what is the next best thing for this child to keep this situation from advancing into something that could be irreversible damage.
Right. Okay. So we have the pleasure of having the guys here. I told them that I was going to loop them in. So just wanting to get the father's opinions as well on this. So we'll start with you, Masudi, if you don't mind.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me. Yeah, so this is a very interesting story. I pretty much I agree with all the ladies. First, they need more therapy. I don't think they've dealt with that enough. And really, I think that the gentleman who is now quote unquote playing uncle, he really needed to make a decision whether he was going to forgive the person he was with, or not forgive her. And if you're going to forgive her, then he needs to be all in. I mean, you can't decide that you want to play uncle in this type of situation. So in this regard, he could have left a long time ago, right? He could have continued to seek therapy to kind of deal with it, but could have left a long time ago. And that might even been a better choice versus this kind of this in-between place. Because at the end of the day, the only person that's being hurt is the child.
Okay, so I really feel that unfortunate situation, and gosh, I'm a firm believer of not lying to kids, and so if you have to go into this role of lying, then you shouldn't be there.
I think that's a good point about not lying to kids. I think that's a great thing to say.
What's going on, everybody? How's everyone doing? I'm super excited to be a part of this panel. Can everybody hear me too?
Yes.
Perfect. I'm also going to say, I think if he wasn't in it 100% from the beginning, I think you're just once again doing a massive disservice to that child. And, as a lot of people have said it before, that's like irreparable damage in that beginning phase. And, that's a prime time shaping area of a kid's life. And I really think unless you're going to be full on dad, the kid doesn't need another fun uncle. You get that anywhere. But, those, as I said, like that partnership and how he's seeing the relationships build in his house, that's how he's going to kind of move into his life. Him or her is going to move in and operate with how they deal with relationships as well going forward. So, he sees the guy lying and kind of playing that role and kind of hands off. Like that's the role model figure he or she is going to replicate. So I think unless you're all the way in, you got to be all the way out and just kind of cut ties.
For that. Yeah. And I think that the overall consensus is the same. And it is unfortunate for the child, especially since that child is, any child, but the child is only 5 years old, for them to have not really thought that out more along the lines for the child than for themselves is quite selfish, as Gail had mentioned.